pausing to listen before you write. And it's easy to feel non-inspired. You're not going to. Mercury, in a certain way, is your wit and your cunning and your sense of humor. What you can get away with, let's do this, aha, look at that. And when Saturn's going to hit your Mercury, you're not going to be cheerful. You're not going to be making jokes. And if you are, you're going to get serious repercussions to them. So it's about timing. Your mental timing and your alertness to what's appropriate, what's not, what's time, what has to be done. So this is it's a profound influence, but it's difficult to predict. You have to almost observe how someone's reacting to it in each specific case. But often the Saturn aspect is going to last on and off for 6 months. It comes in, goes forward, backs up, comes forward. So you're going to get 6, 9 months, almost a year. Every 7 years, you're going to have a serious year where your intelligence, your intellect is being challenged. When you're dissatisfied, it's not dissatisfied, that's Venus. When you're lose interest, when you're tired, when you're bored, when it's tedious, when these pressures come up, those pressures are telling you this is not acceptable. You got to direct things and get disciplined around the way you think, around how you're being alert to life, and you're having to face and look at things more seriously or more responsibly than you have, because you've seen, your Mercury has seen how things have gone for 7 years. It can't keep going like that. And you see what needs to be done, or that something needs to be done to get to the next stage. Or you think, I'll never get to the next stage, I'll just level off here. If you level off where when you have a Saturn to Mercury, if you level off on an aspect, you can create a chronic state of depression that carries on because you've had a block and you didn't deal with it. So blocks that happened 7 years ago will still have an effect on the challenges that will multiply the effects of the Saturn challenges now. And how you deal with this one now will have a multiple effect on the one 7 years from now. That's why we can run into a problem and say, this is depressed, but I'm there. Why? Because my father never talked to me, or because this never happened to me, or because I lost that job, or because, but there's an effort made. How many people work to develop their intelligence in their mind, or spend time to develop a strategy or plan and back it up? It's not just developing the plan is one thing, but whether you like it, that's a Venus. Whether you act on it, that's a Mars. What you've done with it, how far you take it, what you achieve from it, it's your thoughts. Actions follow thoughts. You create your world, based on the thoughts and ideas that you have. So when Saturn's coming on, you're assessing, you're being forced to find inadequacies or weak spots or limitations or inhibitions in the way you think or the way you process or how you're communicating. So it's going to be very different for a kid that grows up with a stutter and has a speech impairment, and the Saturn comes in and they're at each stage they're having to work at their speech impairment or run into people who aren't listening to it or have difficulties with it, and there's challenges. And sometimes these can act out as parental roles coming in, or other people being supportive of your mind or challenging it, or being not supportive, putting you down. Can't define it. We're trying to define it. How do you define the mind? How do you define consciousness? But when Saturn comes up and puts it, it's measuring, it's making you more serious, making you worry, making you more concerned about things. So someone may not talk to you, someone's concerned with you, someone's talking to you too much, some limits are being run across, and you're being perhaps frustrated or limited by it. Then what do you do with that? Can you make a plan? Can you cut off the irrelevant things or the things that are not nurturing? Can you get rid of the weeds of thoughts to get more clear or more responsible or more accomplished thinking? Can you work on something consistently to build up, like to take a course, you work for a year or two and you get better at thinking in a certain way? But you can get this development of Mercury from a course, but if someone never went to school, they would still get it from their interreactions and how well they can do, what they can do, what they can't do, what they get along with, whatever. Of course, if your Mars has gone and got yourself into a huge accident or people got hurt and things like this, and you got the insurance to deal with, you're going to have a year or two of worries because of the responsibilities that have come at you. And how you're going to think and plan to deal with it. So this is the general format of it. So when we're looking at Saturn to Mercury, any of these planets, if it's not to itself, it's going to hit the conjunction at different ages. So sometime in the first 30 years of your life, there's going to be a year where Saturn is going to conjunct your Mercury. That's the beginning of you figuring out how to think for yourself. Doesn't mean you won't run into difficulties or won't be pressure, but you're figuring things out for you. That's the beginning of the cycle of your intellectual or intelligent or mental development. So if it happens at 2 years old, that's a very different thing than if it happens at 7 or 8, or if it happens at 12 or 13, or at 19, or if it doesn't begin till you don't get your Saturn to your Mercury to think for yourself till you're 27 or 28. Imagine that. What does that mean? So this is going to kind of be within 2 to 4 years of where Saturn to the Sun is. So it's kind of loosely tied to the same direction as Saturn was to the Sun, but there could be a year or two's difference between those aspects. They could be a few months, they could be at the same time. But this point of knowing which chart to start with, whether it starts with a conjunction, or it starts with a square, or it starts with the opposition, or it starts at the waning square and coming back. So these are all different ages, different timings that the Mercury comes along. But when you're looking at this, you're going to get 1, 2, or 3 years over from every 6 or 7 years. They're going to be serious. They're going to be very formative. Or when you're younger, someone's doing the thinking for you and telling you what to do, and they're made to be doing it well or badly or too strictly, or not doing it all, not getting the education you need, not getting the teachers you need, not getting the information you need, or being pushed to get information more than you're ready for. It can come either like a lot of different ways. You don't want to think positive, negative. You're going to see limitations or restrictions coming in at the Mercury when Saturn hits the Mercury. And let's just get the, okay, sorry, I just got to get Mars. Okay, there you go. So, look at this. Okay, now. All right, so when we're watching Saturn come along, this is the basic cycle of Saturn to Mercury, development of strategy or mental judgments. So Saturn can come in and cause restrictions, or someone can be planning things for you, whether you're studying something, whether you're doing something, how you're thinking, and a parent or a teacher can be on your case. And they're trying to make you think a certain way. You may go with it or you may go against it, but there'll be a crystallization of the way you think. Judgments get crystallized, get formed at those times. So if you get put down for your thinking, or you're being put down for your thinking, you're not being encouraged, do you buy it? Do you buy, I'll never be able to think, I can never think that much, I can't do that, I can't talk, I better just keep to myself? If you're in an abusive situation and it comes from violent parents or people, it's going to disassociate, the thing is going to go introverted on a negative way of not thinking. That's going to affect your behavior, your actions, your values, your choices for a long time, for at least the next 7 years. And each bend of the Saturn cycle, some factor of this mental complex will come up to be dealt with. With Saturn, it's not an enemy. Saturn, it can be dealt with. But if you start with really restrictive, inhibited, or uneducated or overeducated or bossy parents or whatever that's trying to convince you about how you have to think and plan everything for you. It can cause a depression or a tendency to not think constructively about one's participation in life. And you could carry that on for 30 years or a lifetime. So, like, as you go around each of these 7 years of each of these events, some factor is going to come up that's going to bring those thoughts and those judgments up to the surface in a new way that you're having to deal with, or you're seeing the limitations because of it from another form. So you can see, my boss never liked me. Well, my teachers never liked me. My parents didn't like me, or they were always bossy. They never encouraged my thinking, so why should I bother? Or, like, you have to be alert to find out what it is. So, or you can just be slow, like deliberate, pausing, slow, really cautious. A lot depends how your Mercury, you see how your Mercury works in your natal chart. If you've got Saturn squares in your natal chart, your Mercury, squares or oppositions, you're going to be cautious to think about, to begin with, by nature. And at each bend, some form of caution, some reason for this caution is going to be coming up. So you're going to get more cautious at these times. And pressure will come on and you'll be having to deal with that pressure. But if you didn't have that and you had to encourage your thinking, and you had people encouraging you to think, you're going to run into puzzles to have to deal with. Whether it goes inwardly repressed or outwardly repressed or inwardly working or outwardly working, it's up to you. But we see what we're doing and how we're doing things. So we see the results of thinking. We don't always look exactly at the thinking. I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, I'm talking to you. It's hard to know just how we're thinking, whatever. I worked a long time to be able to teach, to be able to get knowledge, to be able to pass it on, to build up structures, to be able to teach. Some people haven't. They still got minds. They're still souls, they're beings and navigating through life. They're still thinking and communicating and trying to make sense of things in their own barter plane or at their own level of consciousness. But really, the thinking is done for you, or you're reacting the way thinking is done around you until the Saturn conjunction Mercury. When Saturn conjunction Mercury, you're having to make decisions for yourself. And pressure is going to be on for you to do that or not. You will succeed or you won't. But it's going to create a formative mental attitude that's going to affect 30 years before you get the chance to really complete that cycle and do it again. But every 7 or 8 years, you'll be struggling with that strategy around its limitations or its strength, whether you go this farther, whether you go further. I always like it when you see somebody's 85 or 90 years old and they decide to go back to university. Wow, look at that. There's a plan. What would have brought that on? Probably not being content with watching TV and being isolated and wanting to have intelligent information around them. So anything with transits, to understand any planet transit Saturn to any planet or any transit planet, you have to understand how the planet works in your behavior and your character to see this pressure coming in. Then it's easy to see, oh, it's coming there, oh, it's there too, oh, it's showing in these ways. How are you going to work with this? Okay, and it's going to be colored by the signs that Mercury is in and the houses, whether it's rising, setting, above or below, whether daylight is increasing or nighttime increasing, it's moving to freedom, to being more responsible, to being part of other people, to try to be part of the team or do one's own thought thing. Like all of those factors that come in on the way you think. But we're going to see it in the way you behave. The thinking is half buried. Sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it's not. But Saturn comes in and brings it. So if the first cycle's hit on, okay, I'll just bring mine up to